Alright, hi everyone. My name is Adrian Faccioni and I'm involved in sport tech for fitness and sport in particular. And my background comes from doing sort of elite tracking of athletes. And what's happened is that tech has really improved from not that far away, where this was kind of wearable tech in the old days, and it's kind of moved on to some pretty smart stuff current days with $100,000 plus bikes and sensors everywhere. What we're seeing is, in particular when we talk about tech, what we're going to see the changes happen in the next sort of 10 to 15 years. People have probably got these devices on right now. The problem with these is that they're not particularly accurate. They actually spit out a lot of data and not much else, and so we really need to see some changes. And also I can stand still and swing my arm and get lots of data and not actually do anything, right? So where we're seeing that changing is that's going to move into this tech's going to be built into clothing, and that's going to change everything about what we do in terms of sport and fitness, not just in Canberra but globally. In particular, and this is an area that's of real interest to me, is that a lot of these devices now will say, hey, this is how far you run, this is what your heart rate is, and this is how far and how fast, and this is how high you went, and all those sorts of metrics. But one of the core things that everyone needs to learn is how to do things well, whether it be fitness or sport. How do you actually swing a tennis racket better? How do you run well or cycle, whatever it may be? In the near future, all of that tech's going to be built into clothing. Not just sport clothing, general clothing, but sport clothing in particular, and you'll be able to get live biofeedback on your technique while you're exercising, which is going to change the way people engage with exercise because they're going to get better, which means they're going to stick with it longer, and they're also, as an athlete, they're going to be able to actually get better, which is going to be obviously hugely motivating without having to have access to a coach. So this is sort of one of the technologies. Again, think about this application. You're riding your bike around Lake Burley-Griffin, you fall off, you hit the ground hard, the technology's gone, hey, you've stopped, right? So it's measured that, it's measured how hard you've hit the ground, it potentially is measured whether you've got a broken bone or you're bleeding, and it sends your positioning back to emergency services to say this person's not moving, we need to send someone out. That tech's not that far away. Add to that then, what I think is the coolest stuff, is that you're able to measure what's going on internally. At the moment you've got to stick a needle in, which is not very pleasant and you can't do it very often. But there is some tech now that's not as advanced as this yet, but you can have a patch on your skin that'll measure all of these variables live, which allows you to start to individualise the way you do your fitness. Imagine you get up here and say, oh, I'm going to train at 6:30 in the morning because that's the time to be fit, and you find out that that's not the best time to train for you because your glucose levels are too low or your adrenaline, whatever it might be. All of a sudden now we can individualise when you need to train. Now this tech is being used in a very basic form. The New Zealand All Blacks hired a zoologist who was doing his PhD back 10 years ago, and his PhD was on hibernating bears. So they would sneak into a cave and find this hibernating bear, and you couldn't stick a needle in because they didn't stay hibernating very long when you did that, and what would happen is they'd take some blood, and they came up with a little patch they could put on the bear's paws to measure some of these variables. So the All Blacks said, we like that. We want to hire you for 5 years exclusively, and what we want you to do is we want you to measure every athlete in our elite group every hour for 24 hours and work out where their peaks and troughs were in terms of all of these key variables. So what would happen is athlete A would be lifting weights at 6:30 in the morning, athlete B would be doing it at 2:30 in the afternoon, athlete C would have cortisol levels that were really high, so he would be having to sleep, and arguably they've been the best football team in the world for the last 10 years. Not just by that, but this is a tech that will be available in the next 20 to 30 years, and it will again change the way that we will interact with our sport and fitness environment, whether it be in a city or wherever it may be. Sport tech's going to change dramatically as well, and so the opportunities are going to be massive in terms of getting involved in developing this sort of stuff, but also engaging people in sporting activities, whether, I don't know how useful this is, but the ability to be able to run real fast, right, without running real fast, kind of sounds a bit appealing, but there's all this sort of tech that's actually going to allow you to do a whole range of things in the future, and again, there's going to be lots of opportunities to get involved in building really cool things. And then as James was saying, augmented reality, I mean a few different examples, even the virtual reality. Imagine you're in a really big built up city and you can't get out to exercise somewhere, but you can jump on your exercise bike maybe at home, and you put on this equipment, and all of a sudden you're training with your mates who happen to be in their own homes, and you select one of the routes of the Tour de France, and you end up riding that with your mates, chatting while you're riding along. Or you do augmented reality where you're actually doing training and you've got someone actually training with you while you're doing some sort of exercise. That's all happening whilst you're actually in the comfort of your own home, if that's what you choose to do. these things are happening, or this one, which is a bit stupid, you can race yourself against super athletes, right? So, and that's me. Thanks.